Hey everyone, One Piece chapter 1115 is here, and you know there's lots of paneling stuff we gotta talk about. Some of those action pages need to be addressed, and that one lore reveal panel has a lot to dig into. We're also going to talk about a secret compositional trick Oda has been using for a while now. Once you see it, you will not be able to stop seeing it. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the action, specifically Venusjuro's striking slashes. We pick up where we left off, and the wide shot shows everyone's positions in the chaos, from Big Bonnie stomping Venusjuro to Sanji hitting the ground face down ass up. Seeing the position of the attacking giant makes it clear how Venusjuro can kick off his face to attack Bonnie. The close-up panel aligns with the diagonal flow and adds internal emotion to the sequence. Venusjuro isn't just a mindless attacking monster, but has a panel to think, after Bonnie got him, where he decides how to counterattack. His wind-up panel adds rotational energy with how his clothing curves, and flows beautifully into the next panel, as the eye aligns with the attack's direction and orientation. The narrowness of the ellipse implies speed, along with how the eye sees it first, then Frankie and Bonnie dodging. The ellipse overlaps with the circular composition that implies Bonnie and Frankie's toward the camera movement. The choreography blends physicality with unique powers. Bonnie's stomp on Venusjuro left her midair, which leaves her vulnerable to his attack. Frankie doesn't just push her out of the way, but helps her lean back, under the slash, in the most dangerous game of Limbo. To fully avoid it, she has to shrink back to her normal size, which I'm pretty sure is an illegal move in most Limbo jurisdictions, but it makes for great choreography that uses the base physical aspects of each power. It's also good when a fight leaves its mark on the environment. The next panel implies the power of the attack with just thin lines and negative space through where it cuts. Even the giants align with its direction. Yet that was like 1% as impressive as Venusjuro's next slash. Again, a close-up for wind-up and rhythm, with shadowy shading that contrasts the brightness of the cloud layer. The shot of Egghead reminds us of the scale and emphasizes the difference he's about to cause. Yet it's fine if your eye is drawn straight into the main panel and returns to the bottom right after. The main panel doesn't spoil the ones before. I feel a little silly saying that this panel gives you a strong diagonal line that leads you along the attack and to Venusjuro, because you don't need me to point that out. It is very apparent. And the diagonal isn't just for general panel flow, but to make this whole thing feel very unstable after this attack. I also like how the contrast lets this little area inside stand out, since it's exactly where the Cypher Pole agents and Seraphim are about to drop through. The eye technically moves against the orientation of the slash, but like, who cares? That matters in human scale choreography, where the direction actually affects how characters move and dodge around it. This panel is about how he did something huge on a scale where that does not matter at all, and that scale is emphasized by how the perspective bends around to show all the little buildings and how we're far above them, both literally and in the amount of power on display. The best part of this page is how the attack leads into one of the gutters, between the left panels. Subconsciously, it makes it feel just a little larger, and it makes sense when you think about it. A slash creates a gap between things, just as a gutter is a gap between panels. It's a slash so powerful it cut through the page itself in a way you won't even notice. That panel was incredible, and yet it might not be the best one of the chapter. Right after that, it drops this incredible shot of the ruins beneath the sea. There's something so evocative about it that I'm not even sure if I can explain, but I'll do my best to try. Conceptually, the sight of human-made structures completely submerged just breaks the rules of what you usually see in a way that makes you think. Kind of like modern cities overgrown by vegetation. Look up Tokyo Genso if you want to see fantastic illustrations of that. Compositionally, the bridge leads the eye across, then the whale and the fish take us down. From there, another fish trail and the angle of the buildings lead us across again, taking us to all four corners, making it feel full and satisfying. But what I like the most is how much the panel doesn't give us. It's murky and dark, we can hardly see the buildings in the distance. The shapes of the buildings are incomplete, leading off the edge, implying there's so much more we're not seeing. It's mysterious, we wish we could explore it. So much was lost that one panel could never show it all. The cleverest part is that we don't see the ocean floor, or should I say the former continent. More than anything else, that's what makes this shot feel so incomplete and mysterious and like there's so much more we're not seeing. It's like we're not allowed the sight of it, not when it's still lost and unknown. If we want to see it, then we'll either have to fix the world's oceans or explore down there ourselves. And by we, I mean Luffy. The big panels are definitely the standouts of the chapter, but there's a lot of subtle tricks throughout, even in seemingly ordinary scenes. I told you there's a secret trick Oda's been using. And if you want my full paneling thoughts on the rest of the chapter, subscribe to the Patreon or become a channel member. The secret trick is the V-shaped composition. And okay, it might not be a secret, and I might have actually talked about it a little before, but it shows up more than you might have realized, and it adds more than you might assume. Here's several times it showed up in the chapter, and it's not even all of them. So why a V-shape? Well, as I've said many times, the eye should get an interesting path to follow. This line leads the eye away from the first speech bubble and toward the second, but in a fun way. A composition wants a mix of order and disorder. Like in music, you want both repetition and variation. When a panel is already so rectangular, more flat lines inside can make it boring. A V-shape gives us some different angles. They're great for perspective and depth because they're kind of just how perspective tends to look, like in the opening shot of Wano. But that same effect works naturally with a crowd of people. Of course the middle of the V is down low, the people further away are gonna look smaller. Having people close by and far away makes the crowd feel large. It might be a more realistic crowd if someone was standing in the middle, but this way, it feels like there's a more open space we're drawn into, instead of us being blocked out of it. This composition shows up throughout all of One Piece, but I think it's been particularly common lately, and I think the reason for that is partially all of the crowd shots, but partially the context of those crowd shots. The other benefit of V-shaped compositions is that they can emphasize whatever is above in the middle, and in so many of these, that's Vegapunk on the screen. That's how much goes into the composition of a seemingly ordinary panel. Let me know in the comments what your favorite panel of the chapter was. If you want to see more videos breaking down the paneling of One Piece, consider subscribing, and like the video if you're feeling particularly V-shaped today.